The demigods. Qualified by the super excellent quality of the mode of goodness are situated in the heavenly planets, whereas the human beings, because of their nature and the mode of passion, live on the earth in company with their subordinates. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita 14:14-15, it is said that those who are highly developed in the mode of goodness are promoted to the higher heavenly planetary system. And those who are overpowered by the mode of passion are situated in the middle planetary systems, the Earth and similar planets. But those who are surcharged with the mode of ignorance are degraded to the lower planetary systems or the animal kingdom. The demigods are highly developed in the mode of goodness, and thus they are situated in the heavenly planets. Below human beings are the animals, although some of them mingle with human society. Cows, horses, dogs, etc., are habituated to living under the protection of human beings. The word adyanti kena is very significant in this verse. By development of the mode of goodness, of material nature, one can become situated in the heavenly planets. But by excessive development of the modes of passion and ignorance, the human being indulges in killing the animals, which are meant to be protected by mankind. Persons who indulge in unnecessary animal killing are excessively developed in the modes of passion and ignorance and have no hope of advancing to the mode of goodness. They are destined to be degraded to the lower status of life. The planetary systems are calculated as upper and lower in terms of the classes of living entities who live there. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhute Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatunde Ve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shnivadi Paskatyade Satarane. In the Bhagavad Gita, in many different chapters, Krishna says that he's going to explain to us the best knowledge. In the beginning of the 9th chapter, Krishna says, Idam tu te guyatamam pravaksham anushuyave jnana vijnana sahitam yajgatva moksha se shubhat. Now I'm going to explain to you this most confidential knowledge and practical activities by which you'll become, because you're not envious of me, or Arjuna, therefore I'm going to explain to you the most confidential knowledge of both theoretical and applied experience. Then Krishna in the 10th chapter says that again, listen to me, O son of Pritha, that I'm going to explain to you knowledge even better than I've ever explained to you. And then in this 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I'm going to explain to you now the best knowledge. So what is it? He explained the most confidential, and then better than that, and then even better than that. So why is the 14th chapter better than the 9th chapter, where Krishna explains about pure devotional service, which is the essence of all the Vedic literature? Can anyone tell us? Krishna, his memory was kind of short, and he forgot. He said he was going to explain the best knowledge. So he said, well, I just remembered. There's even better than knowledge than that. No, wait a second. Now we're in the 14th chapter, just to keep everyone awake. I'm going to explain even better knowledge than that. And if I had to recite Bhagavad Gita again, I could find something even better than the best of the best of the best. So why is the 14th chapter better than the 9th chapter? Is it? Who knows? Anyhow, any questions? No. Krishna says that This knowledge, param bhuya pravakshami jnanam jnana uttama, is gyatva muniya sarve param siddhim ito gata. And now I'm going to explain to you param siddhim, what? Idam jnanam upashityam amasadharam agata, sargepino prajayante pralayana vyantanti cha. Specifically, param bhuya pravakshami. I'm going to explain to you the param bhuya pravakshami. The best I can do for you, Arjuna, or for the conditioned soul. Now the best knowledge was explained in the 9th chapter. That's the essence of all the Vedic literature. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Always think of Krishna, become his devotee. There's nothing better than that. But the conditioned souls don't accept that so easily. Therefore Krishna has to show how he's the supreme. And in the 10th chapter, Krishna points out his opulences. And in the 11th chapter, he reveals them. And then in the 12th chapter, Krishna tells Arjuna about how devotional service is better than impersonal Brahman realization. And 13th chapter, Krishna begins the analysis of the soul, the super soul, and all the different aspects of the soul's entanglement and the soul's liberation. Now in the 14th chapter, Krishna tells us about something that we're quite familiar with, mainly the modes of material nature. No one could say they've never experienced the mode of ignorance. As a matter of fact, most people, that's all they experience nowadays. There's a lot of ignorance and a little bit of passion. Ignorance means they'd like to stay home and sleep all day. They like to eat, sleep, mate, and defend whenever and wherever they'd like to, and then go to sleep. That's called ignorance. No goal of life other than to eat, sleep, mate, and defend. And the mode of passion everyone experiences, yes, we want to eat, we want to sleep, we want to mate, we want to defend, but we want to do it in a more subtle way. We want to do it with music playing and with nice decorations and in a nice cozy bed, like that. So that's called the mode of passion. We want to enjoy material energy, but in a better way, in the best way we can. But the whole idea is to gratify the senses also, but in a more refined way, in the mode of passion. Now in the mode of goodness, one is simply not trying to gratify the senses, one is trying to gratify one's intelligence and mind. Specifically the intelligence, appreciation of the beauty of the material nature, living in harmony with material nature, getting the best experience out of material nature possible, leading towards liberation from the material concept of life. So the modes of material nature are quite prevalent, well, quite obvious, experiential to the conditioned soul. And therefore, when Krishna talks about the mode of passion, the mode of ignorance, and even the mode of goodness, we can identify ourselves with it. Sometimes, rarely, we feel peaceful in the mode of goodness. Mostly our minds are agitated by anxiety, fear, lamentation, and hankering in the modes of ignorance and passion. Therefore, it's difficult to say that Bhagavad Gita is impractical, or it doesn't make any sense, or is spoken by some who's just an allegory, because it contains very relevant knowledge. Now when Krishna says, Ordvam gachati sattvasta, madhye tishtati rajasa, jaganya guna vrittista, ado gachati tamasa. Those who are situated in the mode of goodness, they go upward to the heavenly planets. Now that we can't say definitely, because we don't necessarily believe there are heavenly planets. That's in the category of faith, if people have any faith in those things. But we do have experience of this planet, Madhya Tishati Rajasa. People are quite passionate in this place. going towards ignorance. So we can see we're living in a very passionate place, which is tending towards ignorance nowadays. But whether there is ado gacchati tamasa, whether there are more abominable places than the place we're living in, that's also a question of faith. Except for the fact that we can see sometimes I feel good, I feel peaceful, I feel harmonious, I may even feel some enthusiasm in the mode of goodness, and therefore we know that that although generally I may be depressed and lamenting all the time or hankering, I know there's a higher state of consciousness. And I know there's a lower state of consciousness where I just don't want to get out of bed. The thing I'm attached to the most in the morning is my bed. So we have experienced the different states of consciousness. Now, logically speaking, we can see that we're not the only living entities in this universe. There are many, many planets. Of course, we don't see the living entities on the other planets, although they claim there's UFOs. But they're always little green people. They're not dead. It seems like they never claim some beautiful people came from, UFOs, someone stepped out and it was a demigod. They're always little green people. They're always flying around in a saucer. They're never flying around an elephant, Airavata, or a swan like Kartikeya. There's always some saucer they're flying around in. Anyhow, some people accept that there are other living entities on other planets. Others, they say that they went to the moon and it was all rocks and dust. But there are many planets floating around this universe, and considering if there is a logic behind it, after all, there is intelligence behind it. Otherwise, why are the planets moving exactly in an orbit? Why can we know when the sun will rise and when the sun will set? When the different planets in the solar system, they have an ephemeris, they can tell you where the planets are going to be in 100 years from now. We don't know where we're going to be tomorrow at this time. Hopefully you'll come back to class tomorrow. But we can't be sure. Because with all our material, with all our human intelligence, we don't know where we're going to be. So how is it possible that all these planets, they're in an orbit exactly on time, unless there was a supremely intelligent, powerful person putting them in the orbit? If you have a machine that works precisely like a watch, tells you exactly when the sun's coming up and when it's going down, now we marvel at the precision of the machine. We don't think it came about by accident. We know there was a scientist who made the machine with precision. So who's the scientist who made the universal cosmic creation with such precision? We can't eliminate the fact there could be at least a supreme scientist behind the cosmic creation. In which then we may wonder, why is it that here on this earth planet there are predominantly the modes of passion? If you go to China, people are just running around like ants, just working all day long. Working not only all day long, but some of them work all night long too. And here in Zagreb they may not work so hard, but they're still working. And similarly throughout the whole place that we know as Bhumandala or Jambudweep or Bharatvarsha or whatever, everyone is working. Unless you go to some island in the South Pacific where people just wait for the coconut to fall. They still have to crack it open. They may not be working so hard, but they have to work. They have to, at least to crack the coconut. So everyone here has to do a certain amount of work, even to survive. And maybe in the heavenly planets, they're also working, but their powers gifted by the material nature are such, just by their desire things happen, just by their will. So they don't have to work like we do. And the lower planetary systems, they can't work. They're too bogged down by the mode of ignorance. They're just suffering. Therefore the Yamadutas have to come and torture them because they can't walk to their torture, they have to be dragged there. Now the question is, even if there were no heavenly planets, even if there were no hellish planets, the fact we're on this planet, and what is our goal? Is it to become more ignorant? Is our goal to sit in bed all day and hope that someone will bring us some food sometime? Or is our goal to gain more and more, to get a bigger and bigger house, a better car, more prestige? What is our goal? Is our goal to become peaceful and happy, aware, content of our spiritual identity? What are we trying to achieve? So therefore Krishna says, Sattvanurupa sarvasha shraddha bhavati bharata sharoma yo purusha yogyashraddhasa eva saha. So everything depends on shraddha. Sad means the heart, and da means where we put our heart. So where are we going to put our heart? Where do we want to achieve? What's our goal? Sattvanurupa sarvasha. So we already had so many goals since time immemorial. We've already gone up and down the universe, and here we are now. We've received this body according to all the different things we desired and we've done in the past. So we've already manifested desires and activities in the past, and they've culminated now in this present body. That's called Sattvanurupa Sarva Shraddha Bhavati Bharata. So according to what body we've gotten, we're being pushed and urged in a certain direction. And it feels completely natural because it's all going spontaneously under the direction of the material nature. So of course it feels natural. Whatever body we get, it feels completely natural. Because it's all being conducted by the material nature, which is natural. So if we get the body of a frog, we'll feel jumping is what we're supposed to do. And the people we admire the most, or the living entities we admire the most, those who jump higher, the highest, who have the biggest tongue and catch the most flies coming by. We look at them with awe and reverence. How can I serve you, King Frog? It seems completely natural, because that's where we get our happiness from. We look at these human beings and wonder, what are they doing running around? Look at their short little tongue. They can't catch any flies. What kind of happiness can they get? So according to the body we get, naturally we believe that there's a certain amount of happiness in the world, and it comes from my body, or bodies like my own body. So we've gotten this body and the human form of life, and it's full of every body is being directed in a different way. And the principal direction is the tongue. According to the society we've been brought up with, there's a certain tendency to eat, because eating is always the beginning of life. So if we're brought up in a society principally of ignorance and passion, just like in China they say that they'll eat anything except that swims in the ocean except for a boat. They'll eat anything that flies in the sky except for a kite, and anything that's on the land, that crawls on the land except for a tank. Therefore, when Tamakrishna Maharaj, he gave his first initiation in China, he asked, what are the 5 regular principles? And the devotee said, no meat, fish, and eggs, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling. And Tamakrishna Maharaj said, what's the 5th principle? And Tamakrishna Maharaj said, no snakes. And other places, like in the Philippines, one of the best sources of meat, they eat dogs there. Now here, if you hit a dog, you get arrested. I don't know, maybe in Croatia, they don't love dogs as much as in America. They love dogs here. Ooh, Fifi, I love you. Ooh, lick me, oh. It's love. What's that?
He said lovely.
But there they eat the dogs. Like if you go there was one lady, true story, she came from England in Hong Kong. And she went to a Chinese restaurant. There's a lot of Chinese restaurants in Hong Kong. But she had her dog with her, a French poodle, that she had just got clipped. Looked like a supermodel French poodle. But there was a sign at the dog, no animals allowed inside. So she wanted the dog keeper, it was a very elegant restaurant, to take care of the dog. So she couldn't speak Chinese, so she just pointed to the dog and she tried to communicate that the man who was holding the dog should look after the dog. In English, the man waved his head, saying he understood. So she went in, ordered her meal. She got a special plate, which she found rather interesting. Special order that she didn't order, a special meal that she didn't order. And she came out afterwards and she asked the doorkeeper where her dog is. And the doorkeeper, the man just indicated, rubbed his stomach, indicating that you ate her. So, for a person living in the Western world, this thing is abominable. Killing cows is not at all abominable to the people in the Western world. Matter of fact, if you don't eat cows, you're considered, at least you used to be considered, to be rather strange. Maybe nowadays there is a number of people who are vegans or vegetarians. But previously, it was quite rare. When I became a vegetarian, 1968, people thought, even it was the time when there were the hippies and whatever else, but still, all the people that I was going to it, that I went to school with at the university, they all thought, oh, you're just it's a fad. You'll do it for a couple of months and get back to normal. Start eating meat like everyone else. So now it's a little bit more acceptable to be a vegetarian or even a vegan, whatever. But previously in this culture, to be a vegetarian was considered rather strange, suspicious. Now it's considered completely normal, and if you don't eat meat, then you're considered rather strange, suspicious. So that's the culture. Here we think something abominable if you eat a dog, and there, in some places, eating dogs, and even in some places, eating cockroaches is considered to be quite normal. You know about that? Yeah, in Korea, just like in America, they sell pretzels on the street. You know what a pretzel is? It's just like this dough-shaped thing that they fry. It's called a pretzel. They put mustard on it sometimes. They sell in a box on the streets of New York. But in the streets of Korea, Seoul, I heard, they sell cockroaches. They have a box of cockroaches crawling around, and you pick your cockroach, and then you swallow it. Maybe you bite into it and kill, you eat it. But you feel it. Some people like the feel of the cockroach slithering down their throat with its little tiny legs. Gives you a throat a massage as it goes down. But who here will want to eat cockroaches? Even the most avid meat eater, if you tell them, here's a dish of cockroaches, who will grab, wow, my God, this is something new. Can you cover it with a little chocolate? See how that tastes. In America, they have chocolate-covered ants you can buy in the store. Or they even have chocolate-covered caterpillars. So some people eat them. Just like when Ramakrishna Maharaj went to China for the first time with Dristadumya, he was going as representative of an alcohol company, which Dristadumya Maharaj at that time, his father was a vice president of a big alcohol company. So they went as representatives. And they were introduced to the governor of one of the provinces there as the representatives of the big company. And so he invited them to come for a feast. Dristadumya Maharaj and Ramakrishna Maharaj told this governor that we're vegetarians, we don't eat any meat, fish, or eggs. He said, no problem. We'll give you a completely vegetarian meal. So they brought in a cake for the feast, and they asked him, what is this made of? No, don't worry about it. It's completely vegetarian. No, what is it made out of? It's 100% insects. You don't have to worry about it. There's no meat or fish or eggs here. Now, this is one more story. We know that in Burma, which is Myanmar now, when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, he sent his disciples there to preach. So they were preaching in Myanmar, and they were having feasts. So for the feast, they'd fry puris and ghee. But when the neighbors smelled the puris, they became sick. They couldn't stand the smell, and they complained, where is this abominable smell coming from? But for their festivals, they had something called nafta. Have you ever had nafta? Well, you have to go to, if you go to Myanmar, they can give you some nafta. Nafta is what happens when the animals die in the neighborhood, say a cat or a dog or a mouse or something, or a rat dies. What they do is they put it in a pot. And then because Myanmar is quite warm, it's a tropical country, they put the pot on top of their roof. And so the roof bakes the dead animals into liquid. It dissolves them into liquid. And then they bottle the liquid, they filter the liquid so they get the pure liquid. They put it into a bottle and they save it for the festivals. And when there's a festival, they take their rice and they pour this nafta on it as a special preparation. And they love the smell. They get excited when they smell this nafta. Puris, they get sick, but nafta, oh my, what a fantastic, alluring smell. So according to the modes of material nature, the people who are situated, they have a certain type of desire for eating, certain attraction for certain foods. But, as we know, many times people in our society, they're brought up as meat eaters. But still, if they chant Hare Krishna, and if they take some prasadam, then gradually they lose their taste for this dead animals. Because their modes of material nature change. And as our modes change, then our taste changes. And when we have a certain taste and we satisfy that taste, it also produces a certain mode of material nature. Did you ever find a calm brahmachari who spends all his time eating sweets? Did you ever find a devotee who just eats everything? He can't eat anything unless it's fried in something and sweets. And at the same time he's completely calm and peaceful in the mode of goodness. Is that possible? Maybe if you have a little good fire digestion, you can get away with it. But after some time, it's not possible to control the senses. In other words, even one is trying to come into the mode of goodness, trying to have a peaceful mind, but if the tongue is uncontrolled, Takshi Krishna Namani Nabravad Grayam Indriyai, Sevam Mukhehi Jivado Swayam Eva Sparatida. No one can understand Krishna with his dull material senses. But when the tongue is engaged in the service of Krishna, then gradually Krishna reveals himself. And a lot of that has to do not only what we eat, but how we eat it, what kind of consciousness we eat it in. These are all under the modes of nature. If we want to elevate, then we have our consciousness, then we have to chant Hare Krishna fencelessly. I mean, we're already attracted to at least prasadam, but if we really want to taste prasadam, if we want to taste spiritual life, we have to refine even our eating of prasadam and what kind of prasadam we eat. Prabhupada in the beginning used to say, for new people, you should feed them so much that they waddle like a duck. But not that we're in the movement for 20, 50, 30, 40, 50 years, and after prasadam we're still waddling like a duck. We have to learn how to eat prasadam in such a way as that we actually honor prasadam and therefore elevate our consciousness. We respect even the food that we eat. Rather than simply devour it, we honor it. And then we'll come to a higher state of consciousness, and according to our consciousness, at the time of leaving this body, that's our next destination. We don't want to come back life after life simply eating prasadam. There's better destinations than that. Although coming back life after life and eating prasadam will be all right for the next 10,000 years, but afterwards, prasadam is going to be rather scarce. Therefore, the Sunday feast may be just some leaves that we found fallen from a tree. It may not be so attractive. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Someone raise their hand. What are you cooking? What's it, nafta? I've noticed there's a few less cats around here.
Even the mice are missing.
What's that?
Even the mice are missing. Everything that we can find.
Is there a question? Yes.
There is a question here. Vimasena Prabhu was asking how to chant offenselessly.
I don't know. I just know theoretically. So we can read the 10 offenses and try to figure it out. One way is to, instead of blasting the devotees, we can serve the devotees. That will help us. Instead of consider the names of the demigods like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the holy name of Lord Vishnu, we can just chant the name of Krishna, the Hare Krishna mantra, and don't chant Om Shivaya Namaha. So those are some practical tips. give up listening to rock music, things like that. Anything else? Yes.
What is this actually? What differs? Confidential knowledge, more confidential, most confidential.
Well, most confidential knowledge is the 9th chapter, where Krishna explains that to think about Krishna, that's the most confidential part of knowledge, especially in the form of a cowherd boy in Vrindavan. Most people will not understand that at all, because therefore it's the most confidential. But more confidential than that is to give a hint that actually Krishna is not only a cowherd boy in Vrindavan, but he's manifested this cosmic manifestation in the most wonderful things here that we know of. He's the light in the sun and the moon, etc. He's a taste in the water. So that's even more confidential, because it's more practical. It's better knowledge, we could say. It's because it's something that most people can relate to more. And the most confidential, or param, the most best knowledge, is that which we can see most easily, the 3 modes of nature, because we're living them. Everyone has a practical experience. So the knowledge is considered best, better, and the greatest, according to our ability to perceive it and appreciate it. But ultimately the best, the most confidential knowledge is in the 9th chapter, that God is the cowherd boy in Vrindavan. But if you can't understand that, we'll give you some better knowledge for you, that he's manifested himself as a cosmic creation. And if that's too much for you also, we'll just see how you're living in the modes of nature. Krishna is saying something that's in Bhagavad Gita that can apply to you. Ignorance, passion, and goodness. Your own experience. And if you take to devotional service, then you'll be able to experience a higher mode of nature gradually. You'll actually be able to perceive the difference in your own personal experience between when you were in ignorance, when you're in passion, and when sometimes you're in goodness. Anything else? Khala Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.